I'm going to show how to make this random star pattern using Affinity Photo's procedural texture filter. I used this pattern in a previous video on how to do a starscape, but I thought it might be good to do one just on the star pattern. It's a little bit easier, and I thought it might be good for people who are just getting started with procedural textures to help them learn how to do this. The basic idea of this pattern is to start with a oscillator that looks a little bit like a star. It has this basic star shape, and then apply a random element so that you can get bigger and smaller stars. And finally, a step function is used to give the stars their different sizes. To get started, I'll start with a new blank document. We're going to start with a HD 1920 by 1080. Make sure the color is RGB. Create that. I'm going to fill it, doesn't matter what, I'll fill it with white this time. I'll start by adding a live filter and choose procedural texture. I'll add a single equation, assign it to all three channels. We'll start by adding a coordinate system, var v equals vec2 of rx comma ry times a divided by h, the height of the document in pixels, and a is going to be a custom real input. I'll set it up to 6 just to get started. Next, I'm going to use osccr oscillator of v. And I looked at a lot of oscillators, and this one had the most star-like shape to it. Now, this part looks nice and star-shaped, but over here, not so much. So I'm going to black out this part of the star shape using a checkerboard pattern. The oscillator that gives me the checkerboard pattern is osci, and I'll just multiply this by osci of v. So that blocks out every other one, but it's not in quite the right position. I'm going to move my osccr over by half a unit. So I'll just add 0.5 to that. And now it's blocked out the correct way. Now only the star shapes are showing and the rest of it is blacked out. Next thing I want to do is multiply this by a noise function so that these will all have random values. To do that, I'm going to create another variable. I'll call it t1 and set it equal to noise I of v. I'm going to multiply my star oscillator by t1. Now my stars all have different brightness values, and I'm going to then use a smoothstep with E1, E2 to select only the inner portion of these. I'm going to add two sliders, E1 and E2, and I'll just adjust those. If I bring them too far down, they start to pick up other artifacts. And so I'm just going to bring this up until they look nice and star shaped. If I make a lot of these stars, I think I'd like to have them be a little bit more random. To create a more random effect with fewer stars, I'm going to add another variable. I'll just call it b, and I'm going to add a power function around the noise function, and it's going to be raised to the power of b. So there's b0, there's b1, and then as I bring this up, I'll get fewer stars. So I'm going to label these now. I'll call this one scale. I'll call this one edge 1. Call this one edge 2. And this one will be number of stars. I'll just call it number. I'm going to add another layer. I'll fill it with black this time. And I want to make a gradient that sort of makes it look like a sunset. So I'm going to add a live filter, use procedural texture, and in this case I'm going to use y over h. Assign it to all three channels. I've got a very simple gradient that just goes from white to black as it moves across the Y dimension. I'm going to add a gradient map to this. I'll just use the default. Now I want it to be sort of orange near the horizon, and so if I look, this is the opposite, goes from blue to green to red. I want it to go the other way, so I'm going to reverse this. And then I'm going to make this one just a little bit orange, sort of a pale orange color. And then I'll add a, I think a nice sort of a violet color, fading off. I'll move these two close together. And then I'll make a sort of a midnight blue color up here. And then I'm just going to fade this one all the way down to black, like that. So there's my sky pattern. Go back to my layers. And I'm going to apply this only to that layer. And then select that layer, and then I'm going to look at a few different ones. So I could either lighten or screen. I could do some other stuff here. I'm going to choose screen. Back to this, I'm going to make the stars a little bigger, like that. So I can move this around, drag it around till I get an area of stars that I like, or adjust these parameters to make them look a little brighter or bigger. Or I can also adjust this one if I want a few more stars coming in. The final formula is variable v equals vec2 rx comma ry times a over h. Then the second variable is var t1 equals pow power of noisei of v comma b. And the final part is smoothstep e1 e2 T1 times osccr v plus 0.5 times osci of v. All right, let me know if you have any comments or questions, and thanks for watching.